Hello and welcome to well, it's not really an episode, but hello and welcome to Handgun Radio. I'm Ryan Machad. This is the day 2 wrap-up of NRA Show 2016. I'm here with Weird Beard, wearing his magnificent Magnum PI shirt.
I'm in my jammies.
So I took a picture of that for you guys, too, because I thought that was awesome. He kept walking by the Tom Selleck poster and saying, "Hi, Dad."
Yeah. Just so you know, Tom Selleck is actually my real father, because my actual dad, the man that claims he's my dad, can't grow a beard.
So we're here in Louisville, Kentucky. This is our last day here. We have to end up driving back to the Northeast tomorrow morning, but we figured we wanted to do a little bit of a wrap up here, and this will end up going into a full show released as a podcast sometime later on this week. So we wanted to kind of talk about some of the guns and stuff we saw today. We did the wrap up last night with Jordan Bell and talked about the stuff we saw that first day. So Weird, how did you feel like today went? I think today was a little bit more organized.
Yeah, it was a lot more organized. I mean, that's the best way to do the NRA show, is just to kind of really run around the first day and just see what jumps out at you, and then the second day go, all right, what did we miss? Let's look and let's consolidate and let's really get down to it.
I think one of the big keys is, before, when we were having breakfast this morning, we kind of went over, and we went to the press room too, we kind of went over what we wanted to look at and looked at the actual map and list. I will say this year, and I know you weren't at Nashville last year. You were at Houston a few years back.
Houston a few years back was the exact opposite of this. That was the easiest show floor to navigate.
I think you'll agree with me that this year was very, very difficult to navigate.
It was tough. Well, there's like a little jag in the. I don't know what the overall floor plan shape was, because the building is so big and so crowded.
It's huge.
Yeah, it needs to be huge.
If you look at some of the panoramic pictures that I took of the show floor, you could just see these lights just going on forever, and that's really how it felt. Kind of the banners weren't really in some of the spots that you would expect, and kind of threw you off when you were looking for a specific booth.
And in the past, I'd seen a lot of places where really you look around and you'll be able to see the which number series of booths you're in and where you are in relation to the other booths, and sometimes they were just really hard to see.
Right. So I know Nashville was a lot smaller, but it was a little bit better laid out. But it wasn't bad. In today, I think we had a better idea of where everything was.
And overall, this was a really good convention center for the NRA.
Yes, absolutely. The parking was
good. It really
good.
held the amount good.
The accessibility was good. The parking in Nashville was horrendous. It was a good probably 15, 20-minute walk just to get from your car to the convention
This was
center.
Actually some of the best parking I've had at an NRA show. The parking in Houston was pretty terrible.
So the first booth we went to was the Beretta booth, and we checked out the PX4 Storm, and we actually asked the guy, because you picked up the compact PX4 and noticed that it's not the rotating.
I've been wondering this for ages, and this is something that just in gunny circles seems, at least the super geeky gunny circles, they're all, rotary barrels until you get to the subcomp, or is it called the subcompact or compact?
Subcompact.
What are the really tiny one? And the tiny one is a Browning tilt barrel. And so I asked about that, and they just simply said that the action was just so short that they could not fit the rotating barrel system in there. So there's the answer to that question.
Yeah, and it was a little bit, I think the subcompact kind of had a harder slide pull.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
Right. The bigger ones, the safety was kind of sharp, but I remember we were talking with Eric last night at our little dinner there, and he was talking about how you could just delete that part.
Yeah. No, you can change them over. They're very modular. There's a whole bunch of different safety options. You can get really, really small ones, get big ones, and you can also change them out just so they're just decocker only.
And the one that you really liked was the M9A3 with that straight grip.
I liked
liked.
Yes, I liked it a lot better than the rest of the 92 series. Is they definitely trimmed down the grip a lot. So, I mean, that's one of my biggest complaints of the Beretta 92 is the grip is just so chunky for just a 15+1, 9mm.
Right.
And so they did a whole lot of trimming down of the grip so that you could have a much slimmer 9mm handgun. And then they also evidently have this big kind of Hogue wraparound type grip that gives it the original like M9 shape, just in case there is somebody that likes that, though I haven't met that person.
So the next place we went was the M&P booth, or the Smith & Wesson booth, rather. And first of all, if you've never been to one of these shows, the Smith & Wesson booth, the SIG booth are probably the two busiest. And I found myself just getting frustrated with the amount of people that were in the booth. And just, it was very hard to be able to go up and see the guns, because I have no problem with the people that want to see the guns, but the problem is you have a lot of people that will stand up next to where the guns are and just be talking to other people and not actually handling the firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you know, you really want to go up, see the gun you want to see, hold the gun, work the action, do everything you want to do with it, get your pictures, and then move back away from the wall so other people can go up and see them. And a lot of people weren't doing that. It was just kind of hard to see the products. And so we did find our way in there. But yesterday we had saw Daniel Waters had posted on the Facebook page that Smith & Wesson was releasing the Shield in .45 Auto. And I found it kind of weird that Smith really hadn't pushed it, because the day before we went through the Smith.
We walked right through. And,
yeah.
I mean, we've done. Is this only your second NRA show?
My second, yeah.
Yeah. So this is my fourth or third. My fourth.
Yeah.
I think it's my fourth. Yeah, it's my fourth. And yeah, it's always been, as soon as you walk into a booth, you know what their new product is, because they're pushing it hard, and they'll give it its own special display rack. They'll give it a big, big poster or a big printed graphic. And with this Shield 45, which is a pretty darn cool, introduction, they really didn't have anything. I mean, it's later on when we were in the booth waiting to go see it, I realized that, up in a big mosaic of other Smith & Wesson guns was the 45 Shield and a big graphic, but it was mixed with other M&P 15s and some other stuff that were not particularly new. And so I was surprised that we were able to be completely eluded by this,
right,
until we had read about it from some other people. And but yeah, what did you think of it?
It was a little top heavy, but that's to be expected. And so it really, the front slide serrations, they say they have front slide serrations, but they really, what did you say, Weird? They weren't very usable. Not at all.
Not at all. I tried to do, and I'm definitely someone that my 1911 is Smith & Wesson 1911 has the forward slide cocking serrations, and I know some 1911 purists hate them.
But those are usable. These ones were,
yeah, exactly. It's
that little cut down. They're just like very narrow.
I'm in love with forward slide serrations because I do use them to do press checks on the gun. And I tried to do a press check on this gun, and you really can't. I have no idea what these are supposed to do. They look vestigial.
It was very, very hard to do, but the gun itself really didn't deviate too much from the Shield form factor.
No. So here's actually one thing that popped into my mind is when we got to the hotel room, we opened up the gun boxes. We were playing show and tell with our carry guns, and you took my PM45 and you put it in your DeSantis Nemesis holster, which
right.
I did not realize, but the DeSantis Nemesis for the PM45 is the exact same model as for the
CM9.
For the CM9. And so the slightly larger gun fits in the same holster. But yeah, you just dropped it in your pocket, and I'm sure you felt the exact same way it is, you know what? They're really kind of closer than you'd think.
It wasn't much difference at all.
And that's exactly what I thought was this gun's in 45, and it's really pretty close to the 9mm and 40 Shield.
So the next one, and there'll be a video. We took quite a few videos today with really great audio. So be looking for those. But we went to the Cabot Guns booth.
Oh.
And I know how you love 1911s, and Rob Biankin, friend of the show, the president of Cabot Guns, always very welcoming. He's a great guy. And their engineer was talking to us as well. And the guy is very, very knowledgeable. The guy has probably forgotten more than I'll ever know.
Yeah.
And he was talking to Weird, and I could tell you were just kind of like, hold on, slow down.
I was trying to keep up.
And they were talking about, first of all, I kind of noticed, it was funny because I was aware of their S-Series guns that they were doing. Last year at NRA show, Rob told me about it, because Cabot is known for their really high polish, really very finely made 1911s. and you know, no expense spared. The externals are just polished to a really, really high polished blue or high polished nickel or stainless or whatever. And you know, Cabot has a background as a tool and die maker. That's kind of how they started for the aerospace industry. So they know how to finish metal in the right way and do it right. And granted, it's not cheap, but it's a shooter, but it's also kind of an heirloom product. You can pass it down to your kids and your children's children and even further down the line. And they were coming out with this S series last year. And the way Rob explained it to me, it was more of a utilitarian Cabot with the internals that you would expect from a Cabot, the internal finish that you would expect, and maybe on the outside a little bit less of that high polished blue, more of a utilitarian, usable carry gun that you wouldn't be afraid to carry with you at a little bit of a lower price point, but still very, very reliable and very, very high quality. And when we first walked up to the booth, you picked it up and you were like, this doesn't look like a Cabot. This must be. And I said, no, that's the S series. Don't worry. They haven't lost their touch.
Yeah, no, I really do come to the Cabot booth for the high polish, the beautiful blues and all that stuff. And they really do amazing stuff. But again, those guns were very nice.
Yeah. And that S series, the trigger pulls are just phenomenal.
Yeah, no, they're exactly what you expect. I really actually do think Cabot is one of the leading of the semi-custom 1911 lines.
But then they have their cabinet with the high polish guns. And then we got talking to Rob about the new Meteorite 1911 matched set, so right and left. So you have, if you had both of them in your hands, one hand you would have kicking them out to the right, and one hand you would have kicking the shells out to the left.
They're mirror images of each other.
Yes, and they are made out of a meteorite that was harvested from a collector. And we can't explain to you what the engineer said as to how, not because there's like an NDA or anything, but because it was just so complicated and so in depth that it was like a fire hose of information.
Yeah. No, I mean, essentially they were just talking about what the composition of the meteorite, the Rockwell hardness of it, and they ended up. Do you remember actually the technique they were talking about? How they welded actually some harder steel on for the frame rails.
They welded some harder steel on, and I believe they cooled it down to like sub-zero temperatures and then heated it back up rapidly and it did something.
Yeah, because, well, I mean, so again, we were going over just the different ideas because, again, I was asking, I mean, how does it work? Because, I mean, the Meteor's got all this fine grain pattern to it and all that. I'm like, are those stress risers? Is that gun going to crack? And overall, they were saying that it's not as hard as the steel of their more conventional guns, but they said we shot it and it works really well, and they did all the calculations and it should hold up fairly well. But he got talking about all this stuff and I'm like, oh, so but were you able to heat treat it? He goes, if we heat treat it, we get rid of that pattern.
Right.
It suddenly turns into regular stainless steel.
And I don't know if you guys can see this on the camera, but that is actually the rest of the meteorite that they had left over after making the gun. And you got to remember, Rob was telling me they actually mapped this out because they only had one chance to cut this meteorite in the proper way.
Yeah, there's a video out there of how they did it, of doing the CAD file and actually fitting all the different parts into the meteorite. So when they cut it, they're going to have as little waste as possible because you only really get one chance.
Yeah. So there's plenty of pictures that'll be going up on the Handgun Radio page. Weird, you took a bunch of the meteorite, and they actually unveiled the pistols, and there was also a knife that they did in that pattern. So it really, really looked awesome. And
the display was really good too. We got to give them some credit for that.
Yeah,
display.
They did a very good job with the presentation.
Yeah, no, it was a very, very cool presentation as well. Which, you got. I mean, that was a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work to make the gun, but it was a lot of extra work to make a really good display for it. It paid off.
So then we headed over to the Walther booth, and really, I don't believe Walther really came up with anything new for NRA at least. The PPS, the new PPS was there, the M2, but I've already done a review of that on my YouTube channel, and I like the PPS M2. Had I maybe been on the market for it, I probably would have bought one of those, but it really isn't a pocketable gun.
I don't know, it's about the same size as your CW9.
Is it? It's a little bit.
No. It is bigger. It's the size. If you're going on a car comparison, it is the size of a a C9.
Yeah, but far better than the what was the original PPS?
Yeah, PPS Classic. I think they call them the Classic.
Yeah, the Classic. They definitely need to deal with the magazine base plate, though.
It is better. I mean, it's like I said. I always talk about this story for the show about how I walked into a gun shop with money in my hand, looking to replace my my revolver with a semi-auto that would fit in my pocket, and I picked up the original PPS, and the guy in the shop, locked the slide back and handed it to me. So I dropped the magazine to close the slide, and then immediately my finger felt the overhang on the base pad, flipped the magazine around and jammed it in backwards, just because the magazine has the overhang in the back. And that's still the case with this new gun, but it is considerably less pronounced. So, I mean, it's definitely either way. Either one of those things can be worked around with training. The other one is less training. So it's a very improved gun, but I carry a car and I still think that's the right choice.
It really is an improvement, and I think anybody who's held the original PPS, and if you hold the PPS M2, you're going to see a really, really big improvement. They kind of added a lot of the form factors that you see on the bigger guns, like the PPQs.
The grip feels a lot better, too.
Yes.
The grip feels really good.
A lot less blocky, a lot less angular. They also had the PPQ in 45. I don't know if you got to see that, but it really wasn't a bad gun. It had a great trigger pull, like a lot of the PPQ line.
Is that a 10-shot?
I didn't get the magazine capacity. I'm pretty sure it was maybe a little bit more. It did feel a little top heavy. That was the one thing that I did notice about it.
It's a German gun. They all feel that way.
Well, that and you got to have that extra slide mass.
Yeah.
With 45. But all in all, a pretty decent gun. The CCP, same deal. Trigger pull,
Yeah.
Did you pick the CCP up?
I did, and one thing I was always hearing people say in the early reviews that I read about it was, "Oh my God, the slide is like it's on like ball bearings. The slide is so smooth. It's just so easy to move." And the talk being that it's 9mm with the gas delayed blowback and all that. It can.
You can run a light spring.
You can run a light spring, but really, the spring didn't feel as light as I thought. Like it was not. It was light, yes. It was easy to manipulate, but it wasn't surprisingly light.
Yeah, the CCP was kind of a disappointment because I think they had something there, and I'm not sure what happened, but just the trigger pull is.
I don't know. I mean, I get the idea of the gas delayed blowback, but I really just think it's one of those things that's just works okay, but not well enough.
I will say we did go back to the Rock Island Armory booth, and I'm really impressed with Rock Island Armory. Mm-hmm. A lot of people give them a bad rap. A lot of people will just write them off.
I used to give them a bad rap. I just can't anymore. But I've actually gotten to the point where I actually have been specifically talking to anybody that I can get my ear to of hey, do you guys have any, Rock Island Armory or Armscore guns? Because just the Philippine-made guns, which I always wrote off. I always said, when it comes to 1911s, those guys make the cheap junk. They make the crappy, investment casting guns that aren't going to work. And that certainly may have been the case in the past for some of the older guns. It is not anymore. They make really, really, really good guns at really good prices.
Yes. And so I was really interested in the fact that remember we talked about the 22 Magnum last night?
Yes.
Okay. The 22 Magnum, we talked about it, and it's really cool because you have people like Kel-Tec and the PMR 30, which is, I like the idea. I like the 30-round capacity.
It's a good gun.
But you can't find the friggin' thing anymore.
You can't. No, you can't. I have a friend who has one. I've shot it. I didn't shoot a full mag of it, but it's a big gun, but it's a very serviceable gun, and 22 Magnum's pretty cool, and 22 Magnum in a huge magazine is really cool. But yeah, again, Kel-Tec has a very low availability of everything they make.
Right. And the thing is, last night we talked about the barrel. think of a Desert Eagle and the way it opens up. Okay, so you have that slide with the big back part, and then the two front pieces that run on the sides,
or even like a Walther P1
or a wall. Yeah, exactly. And they open up, and you've got that big part that opens up at the top. And this is a 22 Magnum single stack, 15 rounds. It opens up like that, and the barrel is fixed, but inside the barrel is a floating. The barrel sleeve basically is a floating barrel that slides back and forth a few millimeters. So what happens is when the gun fires, that sleeve pushes back against the slide, and then when it reaches that point where the pressure can drop, opens the slide up, kicks the round down. Mm-hmm. If you look at it from the front end, you actually see the sleeve and the barrel mating up. And then when it moves, you can see that sleeve move back inside the barrel move back inside the sleeve. It's really kind of an ingenious system.
It's really a cool gun.
And I'm curious to see. The thing is, we asked them today, and the gun's going to be released through Lipsy's exclusively right now. So you're only going to be able to get it through that distributor. I told them, I said, I think you're going to find that if the gun is as popular as I think it's going to be, that they're going to end up just releasing it as a regular production run.
22 Winchester Magnum is a cool round.
It's underestimated too.
Yep.
People with Spear making a gold dot for it, and what was Hornady making the critical duty or defense or whatever for it, have now like rounds.
Well, and you've got all the VMAXs and all that stuff too. I mean, there's just a lot of cool ammo for it. And actually, speaking of cool 22 rounds, we also looked at a bunch of the 22 TCMs.
Yes, the 9R, which they showed us for the Glock platform.
Yep. Yeah. No. And yeah, I was. I mean, you were handling the Glock. I was much more interested in the 1911s, especially the double stack.
Well, you notice that 1911, the TCM that I handled, I have a video that'll go up when we get home, and I could actually put my thumb inside the trigger guard and just barely push my finger on the slide.
The slide spring is so light on it.
Right,
it's
very light.
Very easy to manipulate.
And when you buy it, you get the 9mm barrel and conversion unit. So let's just say that 22 TCM for some reason becomes very hard to get. Oh, I got a 1911 and 9mm.
Yep, that's right.
And the other one we were looking at was the Baby Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And compared to the Browning, I remember when we were driving into the show, I was talking about the Baby Rock and how much I liked it. And I said it just has a heft to it.
Yep.
It feels hefty, and it feels like it really feels good in the hand. And I said I went to the Browning booth later on to see their 380 that was scaled down to 80%. And it just kind of felt cheap and didn't really have a heft to it. And at first you were kind of doubting me, like, well,
yeah, I'm not a stickler for weight. I mean, it's one of those, you can make a light gun, you can make a heavy gun. And but yeah, first up, they're about the same size. Would you say they're about, like, they're almost exactly the same size?
They're pretty much, yeah. I think they're probably the ones that are they're going to be like 20%, so like 80% 1911s.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about when I picked up the Browning. Yeah, no, it definitely feels much more toy-like.
It feels, and do you feel like aluminum to you?
I mean, I didn't really get a particular. I mean, it certainly didn't feel like pot metal.
It didn't feel like pot metal, but it felt like aluminum.
Yeah.
And whereas I think the Baby Rock is made out of all steel.
Yeah, probably investment cast.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very hefty, and I really liked it. So really, really impressed with those. But then they also had a 10mm long slide,
mm-hmm.
which was cool.
10mm long slide's always cool.
Yeah, 10mm 6-inch long slide. And you imagine the price of admission for a 10mm long slide is generally pretty high. Rock Island is bringing that down to a lower price point, and I think that's going to be really attractive to people who are especially doing like hog hunting and stuff, mm-hmm. and want to do it with a handgun that isn't a revolver.
Yep.
I would definitely check that out.
And of course, a 10mm long slide is perfect for self-defense and home defense.
So then Nathaniel, our friend Nathaniel left from the Firearm blog.
Speak for yourself. I don't like the guy at all.
Speak for yourself. Yeah, he just told us he's watching the show and he doesn't like the guy on the right. So that must be me. And Nathaniel. So he basically tore ass across the entire show floor and got us over to the LWRC booth because I told him I wanted to see their new subgun. That thing was cool.
It was pretty cool.
I don't care what he says. I like that thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, they were blowing a little smoke up our rears, talking about it being like a totally new innovation.
Yeah, it really
what it was they took bits and pieces from a whole wealth of subguns and picked the parts that they thought were best.
It's a UMP 45 with a different exterior.
It's a UMP 45 with some AR parts slapped onto it.
It's a blowback 45 subgun.
And a better stock.
Yeah, a better stock. I did like the folding stock.
Yeah, and I don't like the UMP 45 stock.
Right. And it does use UMP mags. Someone, I think it was Eric that showed it to us last night, and he was like, I think it uses UMP mags. I said, that straight stick tells me that that's a UMP mag.
Yep, and they're actually going to be sourcing their own UMP mags.
Yeah, they said that they are not using the UMP mags because I guess UMP mags on the market run like $90 a piece.
The ones made by HK.
Yeah, and he said someone in the U.S. is making the mags for them, and they're going to run about $50 a piece, which still is kind of high, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're going to buy that gun, $50 a mag is probably not something that you're going to be too concerned about.
Yeah, that's true.
But it really was slick. I liked the finish on it. It had the pick rail on the top.
Yep.
So yeah, really impressed with that.
It's a nice little gun.
The SIG booth, we didn't spend too much time in the SIG booth. There really wasn't too much.
Mostly looking at the 1911s.
Yeah.
A couple of the classics. Oh, I got a chance to look at the 227, is that what it is? The 45?
Yes.
Yeah, the 45 double stack.
Double stack.
Yeah. No, I am one of those people that does not get the P220. It's too close to a 1911 for me that I'm like, I'd just rather it be a 1911.
Right.
And so I like the fact that it's a double stack. And again, it's another one of these just really nice, comfortable 45 double stacks. So there's a bunch of these on the market, and I like them.
Now, the one that everybody is sick of us hearing is talking about probably North American Arms.
Yep.
We went to the booth. We got to talk with Sandy, the guy who runs the entire show over at North American Arms, and we tried to convince him to build the Rossi Princess double action. Don't know if that's going to happen, but we did find out.
Or actually, well, I was more talking about a scaled up North American Arms, just a little bit larger in 32 ACP.
Or 32 ACP. We did get an interesting little tidbit, though, that if you remember a while back, North American Arms tried to market the Ranger, the little top brake. They are putting a lot of their time and effort into re-engineering that and getting that to be the new Ranger 2. So I'm excited to see that. That top brake really was a great idea. They came out with the Sidewinder, and you actually handled the Sidewinder.
Yep.
And for the NAAs, that's actually a pretty decent way to reload the gun because, as you know, with most of the NAAs, you're punching out that cylinder pin and just rolling the cylinder out and reloading the cylinder yourself. With the Sidewinder, you pull the pin, and it swings out to the right.
It's not a pin; it's a plunger.
Or a plunger.
You're pulling the plunger out instead of pushing it in, but you're pulling the plunger out, pulling the cylinder, and it comes out on its own little crane, and it actually has an extractor on it, a star.
Yeah, it really was neat.
Yeah, they're neat.
They had a lot of good guns there. There were some guns that were color case hardened by Doug Turnbull.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I love Doug Turnbull's work. They were so pretty.
It was funny because I said they brought them out. And oh yeah, color case hardened. I said that's really good work. And I said you guys don't do anything half-assed. I said I'm pretty sure. Let me guess, Doug did those for you, didn't they? Yeah. And Sadie's like, yes, he did. Yes, he did. How'd you know? And I'm like, I just know.
Yeah, well, you haven't put the interview with Doug up yet.
I haven't yet. We will when we get home.
So we've got one. So yeah, if you're listening now, there will be a Doug Turnbull interview pretty soon. That's good.
Yeah, that really great. And then we headed over to the Honor Defense booth. Now, we talked about Honor Defense yesterday. We actually did a video, and that will be going up. And the video, we checked it out before we went live here, and the video is great.
It's impressive.
Yeah, and it actually shows Gary, the guy who's over there at the booth, taking the gun down from completely assembled, and he actually
taking the gun down from on the display peg.
Yes, it's sitting on the display peg. He grabs it, takes the slide off, takes the pin out, takes the chassis out, takes everything apart from that gun that you would need to take apart to change it over to a different frame or anything like that.
Or just to clean it.
Or just to clean it in 14 seconds.
Yep.
With no tools.
And after the video was over, we didn't cut and keep it on the video. He was like, I probably could have shaved a second or two off of that. And watching it the second time around, I was focusing on just framing everybody and having the gun in frame when I was shooting the video. But you could see the look on his face going, "Oh man,
yeah,
I could have done it."
He did it in 10 seconds the day before.
Yeah.
So I mean, it really was impressive, and I really really want to get some trigger time on those guns. Now, the Bond Arms booth. I went over there hoping to see something that I've heard about.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been familiar with the Boberg XR9, was it XR9S? Something like that.
Yeah, I forget the numbers of it.
Basically, the bullpup 9mm pistols.
They also made one in .45.
They did, yep. And from what I understand, Bond Arms has acquired that company, and they are going to be now manufacturing it. Gordon Bond, in no uncertain terms, is a marketing genius. He knows how to sell guns. Mm-hmm. Some people will deride Bond Arms Derringers. They'll be like, "Well, they only hold 2 shots. They're only good for this. They're only good for that."
You can really, let's face it. You can deride the Derringer design.
Yes.
The platform of Derringer just the same way as you can say, "Oh man, a J-frame revolver. It only holds 5 shots. It's slow to reload. It's not as good as a semi-auto." But when it comes to, if you're looking at that 2-shot Derringer design, Bond Arms is the king.
In the way that we talk about how North American Arms is just the highest quality, they don't cut corners, they don't do anything half-assed. The same thing applies for Bond Arms.
Yep.
It may only be a 2-shot Derringer, but they do it right. The guns are very, very high quality, and they back them up. If you have a problem with a gun that you buy from Bond Arms and you call the company, you're more than likely to get a phone call back from Gordon himself.
Yep.
He is the friendliest guy. He's willing to talk to you, and he is a marketing genius. And so if anybody can get the Boberg pushed out, redesigned to the way that they want it to be, and pushed out to a wider market, it's going to be Gordon.
Yeah.
It really, really impressed. And they didn't have anything there like physically. They had the older models, but they did have a big poster of what will be happening. So it does say arriving late 2016. So I'm assuming that probably we'll see at SHOT 2017.
Yeah,
the new Bond Arms Boberg versions.
It'll be interesting. It's a cool gun.
It is.
I don't know if I'm 100% sold on it, but just because it's so radically different. But I cannot say it's a bad gun. I've definitely handled. Have you ever handled one?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. They're interesting and they're cool.
Yeah. How did you like the rifles we picked up at the Uberti booth?
Yeah, I thought they were cool.
Yeah, there was one there that was, I think it was the Sharps, that it had a set trigger on it, and I kind of wish it was a little bit better than it was.
So this is a hard thing to say. Actually, did you see what the MSRP was on that Sharps?
I didn't. They didn't have any tags.
Yeah, they didn't. But I guarantee. So a friend of mine has a Shiloh Sharps, mm-hmm. And I've never shot it, but I've handled it a lot, and it just happens to be one of those things. It's a friend of mine's father, and it seems like whenever I'm at his father's house, suddenly his son goes in and grabs his Python and his Sharps, and we handle his Python and his Sharps because let's play with Daddy's pretties. But that thing is immaculate and spectacular
and heavy,
and heavy
and heavy.
And the Uberti one does not even remotely compare to it. Unless you factor in the price, I guarantee it does not cost nearly as much, nor, let's face it, if you want a Shiloh Sharps, you're going to have to pay a lot of money, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money to sit on your couch and wait.
Right.
So it was not as nice as that, but it was a Sharps.
Now, we had the pleasure of going to the car booth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went before you, and then we ended up circling back. The car booth. You and I are car fanboys.
Huge car fanboys.
Yeah, we will readily admit that.
Yep. No, there are 2 cars in this room right now.
Yep. And so we got to handle and weird. It was kind of cool because last year, I remember I actually called you from the show floor And that was when Carr had brought out that optics-ready version that you saw Justin Moon shooting in the video. And now they have their P9 with that trigger system.
Yep.
So the trigger system, and like I said, I don't know if you guys can see it on the phone there, but it's got the little trigger flipper safety, like you would see maybe on a Glock or something,
or an XD,
and the trigger is much improved. One of the big complaints from a lot of people is just that the Carr trigger is it's not heavy or gritty. It's just very, very long.
It is extremely long.
Right. And there's no reset.
Let's face it. I mean, it's one of those, when I first got my car, I actually did some measurements and I took my J-frame because I'm like, that is a long trigger. But you know what? It feels like a revolver trigger. It is like almost twice as long as my J-frame's trigger travel.
Right.
Trigger travel.
Trigger travel. And the thing is, there's no reset. You got to let it slam all the way out forward realistically. With this one, it's much improved. And the thing I noticed, and it's kind of sad, but the mass compliant ones with the safety on them, the trigger is fantastic.
Oh, well, that was something I talked to a few years ago to Justin about, and I was saying, so I don't like the safety on the cars. I just don't like it at all. It's an afterthought. It's not easy to manipulate. It's not easy to put on.
It seems to me like something they were like, all right, we'll put it on, I guess.
They really did it. Yeah, it does strike me as a complete afterthought and a complete compliance.
Not by them. Like they didn't want to put it on.
No.
Like they just had to figure out a way to put it on, and that's probably the only way they could figure out how to get it on.
And this explains it all. I said to him, because as you might all know, I really don't care about trigger weight. I care about trigger quality, and the Carr trigger quality is amazing. And so if they were to bring it up to 10 or 11 pounds to comply with Massachusetts, I'd be fine with that. I might even like it more. I don't know, but I don't really care about weight. So I said to Justin Moon, I said, instead of putting the safety on, because in Massachusetts, you need either to have a 10-pound or more trigger pull on the gun or a manual safety. So if you buy a Massachusetts compliant 1911, it's going to have the 4.5-pound trigger pull because it's got a manual safety.
Right.
But if you buy an M&P, I think it's all M&Ps actually. I don't think Smith & Wesson puts a different trigger pack in depending if it has the manual safety or not. But if you buy an M&P, it's going to have the 10-pound trigger.
Right. It really. And we're actually hopefully going to be able to go check out the Carr factory.
Oh, wait, I didn't finish. But I said to him, I said, why don't you, instead of having to put this silly safety on the gun, why don't you put a 10-pound trigger on it? And he goes, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, specifically, he, in that very simple statement, stated that, no, the trigger on the Carr pistol is perfect.
Right.
I'm not going to change it. If they tell me I need to either change the trigger or put a safety on it, I'll put a safety on it. So that is his personal choice. That I don't necessarily agree with it, but I also don't run Carr.
He's a great guy, though. He's very, very approachable. He spends a lot of time.
I have collectively over the last years, I have spent so much time talking with Justin Moon and to realize that he is a CEO of such a big firearms company.
He sits behind the counter like if you go to these shows, you have people behind the booth that, let's just say, sometimes are very prickly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they don't want to be there. It's a very long show, and I can understand it gets very tiring, I'm sure, having the same question.
The receptive nature between Friday and today, it was remarkably different.
Yeah.
Everyone was so much warmer and friendly on Friday because they just were not as tired as they are today.
But
and
Justin,
tomorrow they're going to be even more tired.
Every time I've ever talked to Justin, he has been willing to he's sitting behind the booth just like another rep. But he's the CEO of the company. He designed the damn gun I'm carrying in my pocket.
And let's not forget, we're not talking about, Carr Arms is a smaller firearms company. It's not gigantic.
Right.
But he is the CEO of Carr Arms. He is the CEO of Magnum Research. He is the CEO of Auto Ordnance. He's the CEO of, is there anything else? I think they're all under there.
Yeah.
We just acquired a bunch of other stuff under there too.
Right.
Like their P99 clone and their Jericho clone.
Yeah. But it's like it would be like if you walked up, the CEO of Smith and Wesson's just sitting there behind the booth,
Nope.
acting like one of the other guys. That's not happening over there.
Yep.
So I mean, and he's like, we talked to him. We asked him a simple question about the trigger. He got up from behind the booth, went around and said, "Here, guys, come over and take a look at this," and spent a good 20 minutes talking to us about why this gun was different.
Yep, absolutely.
So really, really impressed with that, and he's always treated us great. So we're definitely, hopefully, we're trying to line up a little bit of a factory visit, maybe.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. So hopefully that does pan out in the future. Then we went over. I talked to Jake Nyman, the guy that I did the interview a little while back from U.S. Armament Corp and Colt, about the 1903 reproductions, how those were going. I see this display that says Colt Classics. They have three 1903s, a cutaway, a Parkerized version like I saw last year, and then a very highly polished blued version. Weird, you got to handle that.
I've got to say, as someone who likes handling old Colts, it really felt like when I picked it up, it really felt like that was a 100-year-old Colt that just happened to have been in the hands of a very, very, very fastidious collector.
Yes.
It felt like the most minty thing. The roll marks were there was really no updates. I mean, really the serial number and essentially the way you could tell that the new ones from the old ones is they look brand new. Right. I mean, there are very, very few guns that look like that from, in the 1903 line, but they have a gold Colt medallion in the grips instead of a silver one. Yeah. And the serial number is different. Yeah.
And it really, really impressed with those. And then also I got to speak with him. They're apparently doing reproductions of early M16s.
Yeah.
So they had the what was it, the Gal 5, I think Nathaniel was talking about, the little carbine version with the big flash hider on the end, and then the triangle handguard M16 that you always see, like if you're familiar with the movie We Were Soldiers, that the gun that everybody carried in that one.
Yep.
So definitely be checking that out. That'll be coming along very, very soon.
But they still have the forward assist.
They still have the forward assist.
I have some AR-15 geeks in my in my circle, and a lot of them are very, very geeky about slab-sided AR-15s.
Did the bottom one with the triangle handgun have the forward assist, or was it just
they
the top?
all had forward assist?
They did. Okay. Yep. I will say I did talk to Jake, and he said that the Colt, the 1903 Parkerized, they're selling as fast as he can make them. Mm-hmm. So he said he can't even keep them in stock.
Yep.
So that's really good to hear, because I think that it's a good reproduction. I remember always talking about, I wish they'd make a 1903. I wish they'd make a 1903, and here they are. Mm-hmm. So then we stopped by the HK booth. The HK booth, you tried the VP9, and you haven't had a chance to try the VP9.
I haven't had a chance to handle the VP9, and yeah, it is nice.
It's decent.
I'm not the biggest fan of HK, mostly just for their price point. And the VP9, although it's a cheaper price point, is still no different. It's still more expensive than competitive striker-fired guns.
Right.
But I've every time I shoot an H&K, the modern ones, I love them. They're fine. They're great guns.
And there also came out with the SP something, SP9 or something like that. It's basically an MP5K.
Yeah.
Honestly. And it's shorter. It's a pistol version, so there's no stock. And it's kind of hard to do the HK slap, which is, I'm sorry, but I think the HK slap is really
Ryan loves the HK slap.
It's a big part of the lore when you have the bolt locked back and you have it up in the notch and you put that new mag in and you just go ka-chink and you're ready to go. And that's a big part of it, I think, for a lot of people.
You were able to do it though.
You were able to do it, but you damn near cut your hand on that pick rail that's on the top.
Yeah.
It really is a lot shorter than your standard like full size MP5 that would have a little bit bigger area there. But all in all, I'm glad to see H&K kind of saying, maybe people would want a 9mm carbine or something like that, because up until this point they'd be like, yeah, no, we're not going to import that. Mm-hmm. So really, really impressed with that, and very, very happy. The next stop we made, and this was a quick one because it was so busy on Friday at the CZ booth that I hadn't had a chance to check this out, was the new CZ Scorpion carbine.
Yep.
It's a 9mm, and it kind of alleviates the concerns. I don't know if you've seen some of the reviews done by We Like Shooting, but they actually talked about how I've had experience with CZ Scorpion pistol, and I will agree that the safety interferes with your thumb when you're holding it. If you have it in the fire position, that safety really jams into your knuckle, and you really, I know the Mad Aussie chopped that safety off. It's an ambi safety, and he chopped one side off so it wouldn't interfere with his thumb. But also the front rails were very, very sharp and abrasive, and they're built right into the frame, so there's no removing them. Mm-hmm. They actually came out with a new model that's a carbine, and the front is smooth. So I believe they have it as like M-Lock or something like that, where you can apply whatever rail systems you want. And honestly, it felt really slick. And for anybody who's looking for a pistol caliber carbine, mm-hmm. that would really be the way to go.
That's a nice little gun.
And the sights are very rugged. The
sights are very cool.
Yeah.
And they had the crazy little select a sight wheel. I had so much fun with that.
And I did ask them, I said, so you think we can buy those sights aftermarket? And like, well, I don't know. And I was like, I know a few people that would kind of want them.
Yep.
But very impressive.
That's kind of like going to the Steyr booth and ask, can I get some trapezoidal sights for my Glock?
Right, exactly.
They don't want to do that.
Now, what did you think of the Mossberg MVPs? Those bolt action rifles.
They were nice.
Everybody kind of writes off Mossberg, and I think we kind of wrote them off until the last day.
Yeah. I mean, I mostly really think of them for their shotguns. And I mean, it's really, I think about it for their shotguns and their 22s, but not their 22s now. Their 22s, you know, back during the World War II days.
Right. And the MVP is really phenomenal for trigger pull.
Nice trigger pull, nice action.
Good price point.
They've got the good like Remington 700 style safety. I like that better than the Mauser paddle style thing, and a good removable magazines on them too. Which
AR mags, I think, P mags.
There was a bunch of different types of mags available on that. But I still must say, as someone who, when I had a Tika T3 that I took prairie dog hunting. That has a removable mag, and just the ability to pull the mag out of the gun to top it off instead of topping it off over the bolt is a good thing to have.
Right. So that pretty much wraps up our trip there. We did a lot of video, which you'll be seeing coming up in the upcoming days once we roll back into town and we have our good internet connections.
We did the interview with K&M Arms.
Yes, we did the interview with K&M Arms.
Yeah, I've been saying all day just how. Yeah. And in the previous night, I talked about like, oh, where's the safety on it? It's got a crossbolt safety.
And it sits right where I actually held it, just trying to see how the crossbolt safety works. Because a lot of the times crossbolt safeties are put in just the most ridiculous place. And your finger should be up on the frame, not in the trigger guard when you're not shooting the gun. And it's perfect because when the gun is on safe, all you have to do is bring your knuckle up and just barely brush that crossbolt safety. Mm-hmm. You can kick it right off into fire.
Yep. You need to use your offhand to put it back on, but who cares?
Right, exactly. You're not in any rush to put it back on safe.
Yep.
So definitely really, really impressed with that. There will be a video going up with Ken from K&M Arms, and we can talk about that as well.
It's a good video. It should be fun.
And we did one with Cabot, and did quite a few others, actually.
Yep. We did a couple with Cabot, didn't we?
We did one with Cabot on the Meteorite pistol. We got to try to salvage the audio on that. We had some sort of interference. I think there were some wireless microphones in the ears that may have caused some problems. So, but we'll salvage that. So hopefully we can make that work. And also we had that one with Grant with the Course revolvers. That'll be coming up as well. So when we get back home to the better computers and the better internet connection,
the internet speed of the hotel. It's better than the hotel I was living at when Did You Pick Me Up at? Yeah. But it's still hotel internet.
And the speed at the press room was actually worse than the hotel.
Yeah, there's a lot of people hogging it, though.
Right. So excellent. So be sure to support the Firearms Radio Network by shopping firearmsradio.tv/Amazon for all your Amazon purchases. Be sure to go support the Patriot Patch Company. We have the listener meetup and go to check out all the great patches and T-shirts made by the Patriot Patch Company. So be sure to go support them, patriotpatch.co. And Weird, where can people find you and your work?
Again, you can find me in this bed right here. It is, again, late at night, and we're going to be driving tomorrow. But you can find me at weirdworld.com. That's my blog. I am also a regular host at the Squirrel Report and the Gun Blog Variety Cast.
And be sure to keep an eye out on the Handgun Radio Facebook page and the Handgun Radio discussion group. There will be, I'm sure, a little video diary of our 18-hour drive way back to the Northeast.
I cannot wait to see what comes on there. Plus, you got room to record for tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, so there's going to be stuff for tomorrow.
Yes, and I've been, the entire time we drove down, I had a little sport camera that I was taking video of. So once that goes up, I'll be sure to share it on the page. So be sure to keep an eye out there and invite your friends. We're about 15 people away from 1,000 likes. So hopefully we can get up to that in the next few weeks. So I really appreciate you guys sharing the page and writing in. And we met quite a few listeners this weekend. People that we didn't come up to, people that actually saw the T-shirts or whatever, or heard our voices. A couple people heard us talking. Were like, "Hey, you sound like the guys from Handgun Radio. You Handgun Radio?" Like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" You know, we don't bite. We're nice.
That's definitely, especially someone who was a blogger for so long, who I was doing photographs in print. People recognize me by my face. Now people recognize me by my voice.
Right. So we'll wrap this up, and the show will be coming out probably later on this week. We'll edit all of this together so people can listen to it on their commute and understand how great NRA 2016 was.
It was good times.
So thanks for being with us, and until next week, have fun and safe shooting.